I can see that we have Jeannie McKendry from Cal ICH with us, and Jeannie has been, really generous with her time and has agreed to join us to share some updates about the Encampment Resolution Fund grant program and round 3, which we're expecting, I think, to start sometime soon. But I know Jeannie's going to give us all the information about that. And I know you also have another meeting coming up, Jeannie. So why don't we just launch into your part of the presentation. And again, thank you so much for being here. We really appreciate it.
Good morning. Thanks, Warren. Thanks for having me. So just good news, as of Friday, the 3rd of November, we did post the application and notice of funding availability for the 3rd round of the Encampment Resolution Program. So as you all know, round 2 was for $300 million, and up to half of that is reserved for projects that resolve encampments on state right-of-ways. And we've got all those dollars out, and we did actually, it was a little bit over half of the dollars ended up going for state right-of-way projects. So that was awesome. A lot of collaboration with all of you, I'm sure, for those local projects. So we had that 3L, which we funded the folks that had applied in round 2, but we'd run out of money. So ERF 3 is $400 million, but we've already allocated out 80 plus, and there's a little bit of admin. So we have $299 million for this round of funding. So lots more dollars into these communities. And just like ERF2, up to half, oh, my dog is giving you a silly show right there, but up to half of our of these dollars are again reserved for projects on state right-of-ways. So last year we didn't have to, pick a state right-of-way project over another one. We're not like denying others, but we're prioritizing the review and approval of these state right-of-way projects, and really eager to get all these dollars out in your communities. So like I said, the application was posted on November 3rd, and we're doing the same kind of rolling application windows that we did last time. So the first window will close on January 31st. So there's nearly 3 months for that first application window. The second application window will be February, March, April. And then if there's any money left, the last application will be the last 2 months of the fiscal year. So it should be run pretty smoothly, just like last year. I do want to flag that legislation has passed that is going to be transitioning all of Cal ICH's grant work from where we are now. Cal ICH is part of the Business Consumer Services and Housing Agency, and we'll be moving to the Department of Housing and Community Development. So, and my understanding is that will happen at the change of the fiscal year. So, which will be right in the middle of when we're getting these awards out for these programs. So we're having regular meetings with the HCD leadership to kind of make sure that this goes as smoothly as possible, and that grantees don't even know the difference. It's maybe my, the suffix on my email will change, and that'll be it. So it'll be all the same people and the same projects, just a little bit of a transition. So that's all I've got. I'm happy to answer any questions if anyone has any. Look at that. I didn't even take up 3 minutes, Warren. I was so fast.
This is Allie. Sorry. One question.
Sure.
So I'm just trying to wrap my head around the look backs. Was that part of round 3, or was that still in round 2?
Yeah, so it's a little bit, it is funny, but so we did the look back for each time we've gotten a new round of funding. We've had pending applications from the previous round that were eligible, but we had just run out of money. Sure. So as soon as the budget was signed, we awarded the remaining applications for folks that had applied in round 2. So we're calling that 3L. So it's round 3 money, but it's the look back award. And so I think it was about 80 something, yes, around $80 million we awarded in July.
Yes. Okay. Got it. Okay. That's all making sense, because I had windows 1 and 2, or rounds 1 and 2, and then the look.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah. We've made charts. I actually have a really nice visual. I should have thought to have it, but I don't have it. I can share it with you. It kind of shows all the rounds and the money, and
I would love
that fits in. But yeah, definitely.
If you could share that with me or send it to me off, okay, offline, that'd be fantastic.
Sure. Yep. I'd be happy to.
Thank you, Jeannie. That's all I got.
All right. So well, I'll stick around for another 20 minutes or so in case anyone has any questions for me. Oh, sorry, Tony, go ahead.
Yeah.
This is part of the last award. So in the awards that we got here in the county or in San Diego D11, the county sent me a request of putting together MOUs, but I didn't see it in the application language, but they did put it in their language. Is that mandatory for them to receive the funding?
It's
Putting
not.
together the MO.
It's not for ERF. There's no MOU requirement from Cal ICH. I know a lot of local jurisdictions do have kind of their own policies and procedures around that, but that's not a state requirement.
Okay, so if so they sent me two kind of drafts for the MOUs for both the riverbed areas that receive the funding. So it's not a requirement for them to receive the money, but since they put it in their language, that's why they're like kind of asking us, can you guys review it? Would you guys be okay signing it? So then I can tell management here that no, it's not a requirement. So okay.
Yeah, although I mean, I would say that there are some local jurisdictions that their board, they won't allow them to accept money without like a board resolution or maybe an MOU. So it might be problematic for the county, but it's not problematic as far as we're concerned.
Okay. All right. Just checking so that I can kind of go back and let them know. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, you bet.
Hi, I had a question. This is Aaron Silverman from the District 7. I met with one of the board of supervisors in another county, and they wanted to know if local transportation organization like the metro system in LA County can apply for these grants. I told them based on the ERF laws and the NOFA that probably not, but I wanted to ask you to see if that's a possibility.
Yep, you're right. It is the only eligible applicants are counties, cities, or the continuums of care. So certainly we encourage you to collaborate, but
Yeah.
they couldn't be the actual eligible applicant applying for those funds.
Awesome. Thanks for confirming that. And then Warren, are we going to get out a sample email from HQ to send out to our partners to let them know about this funding availability?
That's a great suggestion. I hadn't thought about doing that, so thank you for prompting me.
Sure.
I'll put something that out to you sometime in the next day or two. How's that sound?
Yeah, that sounds great. It just makes it easier for us, mostly cut and paste, to send out to our partners. Because in our district, we have a lot of people to email. So.
And I can
That's a
drop a
great
link
idea.
to the NOFA in the chat as well. And one more thing I forgot to mention, we're doing what we've been calling like an applicant conference. It's basically just a walkthrough of the NOFA and the application requirements, and then we answer questions live. We did it with round 2, and we'll be doing it again. This round it'll be on Thursday, December 7th, from 10 to 11, and the link to register is in the NOFA. So, and
Okay.
I know Warren and I think Alyssa will be coming, so we'll have some of your crew there too. So if you want to come and listen, I know we got a lot of questions about state right of ways and what does that look like, so probably be a lot of pertinent questions about your projects there.
So just to confirm, that's December 7th at 11?
At 10 o'clock.
Okay, perfect.
And we can include that, Warren, in that email maybe. And I can help you with that. I think that's a great idea.
Appreciate that.
Perfect. Thank you. Yeah, and the other thing, I'll be working on an updated guidebook for all of you. It probably won't have that ready for a little bit, but we'll also kind of revise the sample letter. And maybe, Jeannie, while you're here, while we're waiting for any other questions to come up, maybe you could just share a few thoughts on, we have a sample letter that we provided to our districts. It's a template of sorts, but ultimately it's designed so that our districts can personalize it and add information that helps your review teams understand why these projects are important to Caltrans. So is there anything that you would suggest to our team for trying to make those letters even stronger or help your review team process?
I mean, all the letters that we saw were good. None of them had any inadequacies, but just really focusing on how each of these two, like your team and the local homelessness services folks, can really work together and support each other in your efforts. I think anything that you can kind of like lift up that you have to offer for them, or that they've reached out to you all, and like how you're collaborating is really kind of the key for those.
So, Jeannie, there was a question in the chat that I think you may not be able to answer off the top of your head, but let me see if I can find it.
Is it the how many total
I know
dollars
the
have we granted?
correct, yeah.
Yeah, so let's see. So we had the first round was 50 million, and so I think it ends up being 48 that we awarded because there's a 5% set aside for like TA and admin. So the first round was 50, the second round was 300 million, and then we've already awarded about 80 million of this final round. So over 400 million already has gone out, and there's about 3 left. So lots and lots of dollars. So one of the
Yeah,
things too, we're really hoping that we see more applications from kind of more rural areas. You know, obviously there's more encampments in more heavily populated areas, but we know there's a need in some of these smaller communities too. So, and we did get some, but we'd love for those of you that work in kind of smaller areas, if you like can help inspire your local folks to apply for these dollars, there's a lot of money on the table. So.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you, Jeannie, for that. I know, Bob Heifel and Rick Estrada, who aren't here today from District 10 because they're having their Employee Appreciation Day, but they both did a lot of outreach to a couple of the rural counties, and we actually saw both of those. Bob's here. Both of those projects get funded, and that just kind of shows the power of what happens when you reach out to your local partners. And so I think, Jeannie, to your point, we really do have an opportunity to kind of amplify your message and get participation from some of the corners that maybe we haven't seen up to this point.
Yeah, definitely.
So I have a question for you, Jeannie, and maybe you said this and I just didn't hear it. Did you say, and I know it's on the NOFA, what the deadline is for the applications, and then also, are you going to have the same kind of, review windows where there are going to be some rolling deadlines that our local partners are going to be meeting?
Yep, that's right. So the first application window is going to close the 31st of January. So the first application is 3 months. The second application is 3 months. So February, March, April, and then May, June is going to be the last application window. And yeah, just like last time, we'll have those rolling reviews. So once they come in, it takes Cal ICH maybe a week to do kind of our administrative review, make sure everything's in order. We have all the documents and everything. We send the state right-of-way applications to you for your review, as you know, and we'll send out. We have a contract with Focus Strategies, and they've convened the panel that's been doing the actual scoring review. Like my team's we have 3 people, right? So we just don't have the capacity, and 4 programs, so we don't have the capacity to do it. So we've been contracting out for that. And we had a little bit of a late start last year because we didn't have that contract in place, but this year they're in place. It's the same folks. They reviewed all the ERF2 applications. So we're going to be able to just hit the ground running really, really quickly with this round. So we're hoping, I think really the delay is that, the governor likes to make announcements about these. And so you've got to wait for the governor when he's got time to make an announcement. So that can add, 2 to 6 weeks onto the end before we can make the announcement. But we've really been trying to push these announcements out as fast as we can. There's really short expenditure deadlines on this money too. Like you don't have that much time to spend the money. So we really don't want any delays getting this money out. So we're doing everything we can on that front.
Great. Thank you for that. So just for this team, those are the deadlines where your local partners are going to be looking for those support letters. So there's probably going to be a flurry of activity in the beginning of January with those partners putting together their plans. Hopefully you're already engaged with them well in advance of them asking you for a letter, because, the idea here is we really want, collaboration with our local partners, and it's an opportunity for us to help them understand where our priority places are and kind of direct them to, proposals that are going to really scratch our itch, as they say. Okay. So, Jeannie, I think we're going to let you go. Thank you so much for joining us. I'm sure we'll have some more questions for you, and I'm hoping that we'll see some of our encampment coordinators on your applicant meeting on December 7th.
All right, great. And you know where to find me. Thanks all. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Okay, so any comments before we move on to our next agenda item, which is going to be the legislative affairs update? Fantastic. I can see that Angela Madison from Ledge Affairs is here. We really appreciate you joining us today. And we're looking forward to getting an update on, all the great things that happened in the last legislative session and any other updates that you think would be important for this group. So Angela, thank you for joining us.
Thank you. I think you were updated by Danny recently with it was AB 1377, which didn't really impact Caltrans much. It was the application to Cal ICH, and so that funding and interaction applications does not impact Caltrans at all. But it was about transit facilities, and there are some facilities on state property, but the use of them and leasing of them would take the maintenance of Caltrans out of it. So therefore, no impact again to Caltrans. But right now we're in proposal phase where, and if anyone is unfamiliar with that process, I can tell you what that is. It's where we receive concepts from programs, divisions, and districts, and we send those up to CALSTA, and the governor's office is kept close to chest because it's we're part of the administration, as you know, and it's what the governor is going to push out as part of his administration. So it's kept extremely quiet and close to the chest, and you find out when a bill is introduced by a legislator, because the legislative branch handles introducing bills. We don't. The administration does not. We're part of the executive branch, if you will, if you think about the three branches of government: judicial, legislative, and executive. So you will find out about those pretty soon here. We do have the legislature, pardon me, I get tongue tied here, but we'll be back in session January 3rd, and things will move rather quickly at that point, because anything this, as you know, we're in campaign season, but the legislature will have this year and then elections. So that said, they're trying to get a lot of things done. So it's going to move quickly. When we need things, we will let you know, but the timeline will be short, especially if a budget change proposal, also known as a BCP, if that's requested on anything that they sign off on when they return. We do have a lot of hearings coming up because, again, in winter and early spring is hearing season when we have to testify publicly at various hearings on transportation. We have one December 8th. And I think that's it, unless anyone has any questions for me.
So thank you, Angela, for that. Does anybody have questions for Angela? I know my interest in this was, I think that process thing is really helpful. So thanks for kind of giving us an update on, what that proposal phase is. That transit legislation was something I thought might be really interesting to folks. So, there may be some additional questions around that. But was there any other legislation that was signed that, either nibbles around the edge of encampments or maybe even the affordable housing side of things that you can think of that we should be aware of?
So we had quite a bit around affordable housing, and oh my goodness, you're going to make me deal with my memory.
Yeah.
And unlucky for you, my mind has so much in it right now. Organizing it will take the rest of this meeting, but we did deal with a lot with affordable housing. One of them that you may be interested in, I don't know, so you could stop me if I go too deep. But one of the issues we're seeing statewide, I'm dealing with it in 3 different districts right now, is either other entities saying that they, meaning cities or counties, saying that they want to acquire our property in a direct sale, meaning below fair market value, for affordable housing. So for them to either build or renovate property. It could be a lot that they're looking to purchase, or actual structure that they're looking to purchase, and for the purposes of affordable housing. And many people don't realize this, but in our state highway code, SHC, right now they don't have a stipulation or any type of allotment, if you will, that they will allow a city or a county to purchase through a direct sale um, for affordable housing purposes. That's not considered a public use or value. So we're working on that, on seeing if we can get the CTC to allow us to include that for the purposes of public benefit and public use. And it's an extreme challenge. We were denied it a few months ago, almost a year now. We were denied that, and so we are restructuring the argument because it's coming up a lot. Obviously, if we do get that that provision added, we will have several markers that will have to be met, because it's one that can easily be abused because you purchased the property below market value. So, so there'll be a lot of asterisks and small prints in layman's terms. So, so that's one of the things we're dealing with. As far as legislation, let me do a quick search and I can give you some numbers, but it's a hot topic right now as far as affordable housing and encampments, and a lot of it is the policing of those, so that they don't get established to begin with. So we're working with CHP, but that's about it. And I can definitely send a list and maybe even a brief synopsis or the analysis that we did with them of all the ones that involve encampments, because I believe this year there were 8 of them, and that's off the top of my head, so don't quote me on that.
No, that'd be great if you would send that to us. I think I did see something similar to that, and I don't know that we distributed it to this group. So if you send that to us, we'll certainly make sure to get it out to folks on this call. So thank you for that.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So I have a question for you, and certainly if other people have questions, please go ahead and raise your hands or drop it into the chat. We'll try to keep an eye on it there. So the question I have is just more of a process one, and I know our encampment coordinators are constantly in contact with members of the general public, but they also end up running into local elected officials, whether it's at the city or county level, or even sometimes they're state legislators. I know we generally will try to run back to your office with any kinds of inquiries that we get. But do you have any kind of guidance just in terms of our internal process for elevating, ideas about legislation or requests that we get to Ledge Affairs?
Great question, and that answer has so many gaps, but I'm going to tell you what the preference is. We are, and just so you know, I work really closely with Elisa, and we're trying to make sure we smooth out that process, because a lot of times encampment coordinators are missed in the communication when it's going down or up or over or sideways, and that's not okay. So we're trying to close those gaps of communication to make sure that, I had D10 reach out to me, so we're doing a session with just D10 and their encampment coordinator. Bob may be on here, but I appreciate Bob for reaching out and making sure that we were on the same page. We were on one accord about the messaging and what needs to happen. But let me put it to you this way. If you get an inquiry from any state legislator or U.S. congressperson, congress member, please, for the U.S. Congress people, please reach out to Nicole. And I don't know why I'm drawing a blank of her name right now. See, I have too many things floating in here, but and it'll come to me in a minute. Or Andrew Carhart in the federal liaison's office, and anything that's state related from a state legislator, please send it to my office. Send it to Danny and copy me, or to me and copy Danny. It doesn't matter. But please, please, please don't let anything go through without making sure we have our eyes on it, because a lot of issues, some issues are district level and district contained, right? And we totally get that, but we definitely should know who's reaching out to you and about what. A lot of issues lately, for instance, reconnecting communities, highway cameras, acquisitions of direct sales for property. Those are statewide issues, and we're handling them at headquarters in conjunction with CalSTA. So we want to make sure that, you know, whatever we're saying is the same and is consistent, and that you're informed like we're informed. So yes, so I am working on closing that gap. I know all of you have probably had a scenario where you had no clue something was happening, and it was through legislative affairs or through some type of legislation. So so that's unfortunate. That is not the plan. That is not the way it should go. So just let me know.
Well, that's great. Thank you for that. And I would assume, you know, I came from a smaller district, so our ledge affairs was handled also by public affairs, public information. So I would imagine that one thing you want to do is also be cognizant of who your internal district contact is, and work kind of through them to reach out to your office as well. But I really appreciate hearing your comment that we want to make sure that our encampment coordinators are in that process and not left out, because I think that is sometimes a weak spot for us.
Exactly. I know we had an issue in 12, and for some reason, towards the end is when the encampment, and mind you, we had Elisa in her office, and Allison, you know, so many people involved, but yet the encampment coordinator wasn't involved until the last minute. And that's just not okay. I want you to hear it from me, all of you. That is just not okay. That's poor communication. It's not good teamwork. We're not being great partners. And so that should have never been overlooked. And I profusely apologized, even though it wasn't on me, but you know, but somebody should have said, well, who's the encampment coordinator? Just asking the question at least makes the district think about it too. So great point. If you are in a district and you are you know, you get an inquiry from a legislator, contact your legislative coordinator and or PIO in some districts. So it helps a lot.
That's great. Thank you for that, Angela. You know, I know we all kind of have a tendency to be moving fast, especially on legislative things. They go slow, and then they go very fast at the end. And so this kind of conversation and having you engaging with us, I think, is just one part of how we may kind of get ahead of the curve on that in the future. So thank you for being here.
One more thing. If you get it, one thing that you should probably let your legislative coordinator and or PIO, depending on how your setup and hierarchy is in your district, if they get an analysis from our office that involves encampment, now we're trying to, from the headquarters end, we're trying to make sure that you're looped in immediately. But if we miss it for any reason, make sure that your district level people know, because you need to be a part of that analysis.
That's great. Do you have a list of the, you know, your contacts at the district statewide that you could share with us?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Let me
Great.
write my action items down. I owe you the
Okay.
bills. I owe you the bills and a contact list.
Great. And we just have a couple more minutes, and I know our next speaker has already joined us. So do we have any additional questions for Angela before we let her go today? I think you're going to get off easy here today, Angela.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Make it a great one.
Well, listen, thank you so much for joining us. And certainly, if anybody has follow-up questions, you can send them to me or just reach out directly to Angela, and we can follow up with you. So thank you again for being here.
Thank you.
All right. So the next item on our agenda is an update on the care course. And, you know, I know this has been kind of a hot topic. There are a lot of questions about this and how it's going to impact the populations that we serve. So we really appreciate the fact that Matthias Oosterbrock from HHS is here today. Matthias, if I'm saying your name wrong, please correct me. But thank you for being here, and we're looking forward to getting an update about how the care course is going to affect us and kind of what you see coming up. So thank you for being here.
Yeah, my pleasure. First, can everyone hear me? This is honestly my first time using WebEx, or yeah, WebEx.
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, and then I'm going to try and share my screen. Again, it's my first time using WebEx, and I'm not sure how well I'll do here. I'm also on the browser because I wasn't able to download on my state computer this new program. So hold on, give me one moment here.
Yeah, this is your remote work technological fire drill for the day. Thank you for bearing with us.
Yeah, I did not anticipate that, and I guess you'll see my wall. Usually I have like an image in the background, but I guess I can't do that on the browser. So welcome to my living room. Okay, share screen. How's this gonna work? Window, entire screen. Boom. Okay. Did I do it?
You did it. Great.
I did it. Okay, great. Yeah, so nice to meet you all. Happy to be here. My name is, again, Matthias Oosterbrock. I'm with the California Health and Human Services Agency, which is the agency, of course, that oversees many health-related departments, many of whom you may interact with. I'm not fully sure of the role of the encampment coordinators, but I'm certain there's overlap there. So yeah, we want to give a sort of a relatively brief overview of the CARE Act, what it is, and sort of the status today, both so that in your direct work as encampment coordinators, you can potentially, use your knowledge, and but also we know that you work with a lot of people who may be interested in the CARE Act, either who may qualify for the CARE Act or who may be interested in petitioning others to be involved in the CARE Act. So we're going to, without the risk of giving you too much information, we're trying to balance too much information with information that you might be able to share with others about how the process works. So I'll do a sort of a brief overview and then make some time for questions. Some of this is pretty complicated. There's a lot of court processes and lawyers here. So some questions depends on where your brains go. I might not be able to answer, but we'll definitely take those back and get back to you about those. Okay, let's see if I can figure out how to advance my slide. Okay, so what is CARE? In a nutshell, it's what we call upstream diversion, hoping to prevent some of the more negative consequences that happen a lot with these populations. So mostly thinking here of conservatorships and incarceration. And so it's a court program that would hold both the individual as well as the county service providers accountable for providing services. Sorry, I've got a little bit of a cough here. To the respective individual, and while also trying to balance self-determination, allowing them to live in the community if possible and choose as much as possible the types of services they receive. We understand that that's an important part of both dignity and success in terms of improving outcomes, is getting buy-in and collaboration with the individual themselves. And we're also ultimately basing this on evidence that, especially with modern advances in medication, but also just knowing what our services can provide, that we can help people in these situations heal and really, stabilize. And oftentimes the program is not geared, and I'll get into this more, it's not only for homeless individuals, but certainly we expect that a lot of the people who will go through the CARE program will be homeless as a result of their untreated illnesses. So it's a fairly niche population of people who would be eligible for the CARE program. Again, I'll go over this in a little bit more detail, but essentially, we think that the people who qualify would total between 7,000 to 12,000 in California across the lifespan of the project. The process. It's very hard to estimate these kinds of things, and we'll talk a little bit more about the eligibility criteria in a second, but that's sort of the range of impact we're expecting to have here. So first, this is a sort of a simplified graphical representation of what is the CARE process. I'll break it down after this and then go one more time over it in a little more detail with some bullets just in case people learn in different ways. But essentially what will happen is that the process starts with a petition to the court, the CARE court as it's being called. And so the petition can come from a range of people. It can't come from anyone, and I'll talk about who's eligible to petition, but essentially the petition would request that a specific individual is entered into the CARE process. As part of that petition and subsequent to that petition, there is a clinical evaluation that will occur, basically determining whether the person is actually qualified to be enrolled in the CARE process. I suppose it's mostly clinical. There is some more judicial process there as far as the eligibility criteria are concerned, but again, I'll go after that actually in the next slide. If they are eligible, we'll develop what we're calling a CARE plan or a CARE agreement. And the CARE plan is really just a document that outlines all of the services that the local partners will provide to this individual. And of course, that the individual will be held accountable for attending or participating in. It can include medicines, it can include psychotherapy and counseling. It also can include housing of various types. These individuals will need different types of housing depending on their situation. I'll get a little bit more into that later, but that's what the CARE plan is, sort of a series of supports and services that the counties, typically counties, but I should just say local partners are responsible for providing. And of course, we hope, it is our hope that this will allow, will really facilitate the receipt of these services by these individuals who can oftentimes be difficult to coordinate across the different service types and also ensure that the services are available. So most importantly, who does the CARE Act serve? So that everything that's in the bill is listed here, but most importantly, of course, they have to be an adult, but most importantly, the individual must be experiencing essentially an illness on the schizophrenia spectrum or similar psychotic disorder. They also can't be currently stabilized or in ongoing voluntary treatment. We're really looking to treat people who are otherwise very hard to kind of address. They also have to meet one of the following two listed here, and this is kind of more the judicial process of determining whether they are unlikely to survive safely and that their condition is deteriorating, or that without the services, they would deteriorate and be likely to be a grave danger both for themselves or for someone else. We also would have to show in the court that CARE is the least restrictive alternative. So a lot of this has to do with, have we tried other methods to engage this person? And also we have to find that it's likely the person will benefit from participation in CARE. So the next kind of question of import is who can file a CARE petition? Before the process gets started, someone has to actually, file a document that has a series of reasonings for why this person is eligible for the CARE Act. It is a pretty specified group of individuals that you'll see here. Some of these can be designees, so it doesn't need to be the director of the hospital if the director designates someone else within the hospital system to file a petition. Of course, roommates and family members we expect will be a common, but also first responders that have had a lot of engagement with the, had multiple, it doesn't have to be a lot, it's 3 engagements specifically, but And then it can also be the respondent. And that one can be confusing, but essentially that's because this care process can be a diversion from certain classes of misdemeanor hearings, in which case the misdemeanor could be dismissed if they were to successfully enroll in the CARE Act. So we actually are seeing respondents starting to petition themselves. So one thing that's important from this slide for you all is that you can't petition for someone to be in the CARE Act directly. I'm not 100% sure the makeup of your teams, but I'm imagining most of the people in your teams also would not be under this list. However, if you think that someone that you've engaged with is qualified to meet the CARE Act, again, the eligibility is pretty specific. You can certainly work with your partners in behavioral health to suggest that this person is petitioned to enroll in the CARE Act. But it's good to note that this is not a first stop. This is if this person hasn't received or hasn't, there haven't been attempts to provide services to this person, that this CARE Act would not be appropriate. It is a little more intensive than maybe most desirable by the individual. So we want to make sure that this is not the first stop, but certainly that this is a stop before it gets to the point of a conservatorship or incarceration, et cetera. So you probably know, or you may know, I imagine you know the behavioral health teams to some degree for each of your respective jurisdictions. Each of the counties, and I have a link at the end, but each of the counties does have a website already. Each of the counties that have already implemented CARE has a website that will give you more information about who to contact, et cetera, if that's something that you need. And as more and more counties go online with the CARE Act, the websites will increase. So what I have at the end is a directory where you can find your respective jurisdiction and go from there with the contact for the behavioral health jurisdiction who could petition for the CARE member. So in addition to the petitioner and of course, the respondent, there's a number of actors involved in the CARE process. It is a court process. So, there will be both the judge as well as legal aid or a public defender that represents the petitioner. Oh, sorry, not the petitioner, what we're calling the respondent or the individual who we're trying to enroll in the CARE process. Whether it's legal aid or public defender is determined by the county and can change over time, but they will have counsel. And then also the county's behavioral health department will be involved in the CARE process, even if they don't initially petition the individual to the CARE court. Once it's determined that the individual is qualified, that the title of petitioner actually transitions to the behavioral health department, who has a role in this process in providing services, of course. And then there's also something known as a voluntary supporter. So this is a volunteer who the respondent agrees to have on their team, if you will, where they are not a part of any of the other parties, and they're really just there to help the individual understand what's happening and help advocate if necessary, or just generally support the decision-making capacity of the individual. So those are the majority of the departments. There are some peripheral departments that are involved in as we get into the care plan, which I'll discuss next. But these are sort of the key players that are involved in the process and the plan. So what is actually a care plan or a care agreement? It's a document, an actual document that will specify which services are necessary for the individual to support their recovery. So of course, behavioral health care, which could include things like psychotherapy or counseling, and also stabilization medications, so antipsychotic drugs. One thing to note there, it's a really important point, is that the court can do what's called order the medications, but there's no forced medication. So it can be a bit confusing, but essentially ordering the medications means that, the most impactful consequence of an oral medication order is that you don't need the same consent of the client to take the medicine. But that being said, you still can't force them to take it. So you need to, so consent is typically a process that requires a lot of formalities, signatures and such, which can make people kind of distrustful. And so it sort of gets away from that, but also you still can't force them. They still need to willingly take the medication, et cetera. Other services, and a really important one, of course, for you all, and I'll talk about this a little bit more in a second, but is housing. And then the care plan is developed in collaboration with all of the parties of the specific care process. This distinction is probably not really relevant for what you're doing, but you may hear the difference between a care plan and a care agreement. Essentially, a care agreement is if the individual agrees early in the process to participate in the process. The main change there is a little bit less court review of the process, but it's functionally very similar to a care plan, which is court ordered and has a little bit more court oversight and in order to troubleshoot what may or may not be going well with the services. The care plan or care agreement lasts for 1 year with a series of hearings throughout to determine, just how it's going. And it can also be extended for another year, but it can't go more than 2 years. Obviously, homelessness housing is a big concern of you all's and also a big concern of the CARE Act for many reasons. But of course, being unhoused makes treatment, even the right treatment, really hard to both continue and also for it to be effective. There's a lot of traumas that happen outdoors that, of course, exacerbate the problem. So housing is a very key element of care in the housing plan. And as part of that, and also as part of a larger body of work or body of investments, I should say, that the state is making, we have increased a lot of housing facilities for sort of people with behavioral health needs. So that's a huge range still within that, and even a range within the CARE Act eligible participants. So that can be sort of interim or bridge housing where it may just kind of sustain them while they're looking for housing, but it can also be adult or senior care settings where there's a lot of wraparound services provided. And it can also actually even include housing with family and friends. It just depends on the individual and what the team of the care team thinks will be the most effective for helping this individual recover. So yeah, we've spent $15 billion in the last 2 years, including a $1.5 billion for what's called behavioral health bridge housing. And the reason I call behavioral health bridge housing out is because it does have a specific prioritization for members of the CARE Act. If there's no demand from the CARE Act, this housing can be used for other individuals, but the CARE Act allows to prioritize CARE Act participants in those beds. So to graduate from a care plan is what we're calling it, a graduation, which is a very common collaborative court term, which essentially means, completion of the agreement. At the end of that year, is when you can determine if you would like to do it for another year. The reappointment or the additional year is at the would only happen if the respondent volunteered for the other year. There's a lot of reasons. I mean, again, you have the prioritization, and then there's also just an overall a coordination of services that happens within the care process that would be an advantage to someone looking to help continue to stabilize themselves. So there are certainly reasons that we may expect for extensions here. And whether or not they decide to extend the care plan, they will continue to be eligible for the same services that they were previously. So let's see, the next slide here is another overview similar to the graphic, but now that we've gone over it of kind of more details here. This might be more helpful just for reading over, but just to focus on the main process. Again, you have the petition is filed, the court determines whether the respondent meets the criteria of the care plan of the CARE Act, and then essentially develops a care plan or a care agreement depending on the interest of the respondent. And then there's ongoing status reviews over the course of the year of the care plan to troubleshoot and coordinate between the services, the respondent, the supporter, et cetera. And that's pretty much the overview there of how it works. So overall, all counties will be required to implement the CARE Act, but we're doing this in a sort of tiered way so that we as a state and as individual counties can sort of problem solve as we develop. So right now, what we're calling the cohort 1 counties just implemented, well, I suppose about a month ago, in October of this year. So you can see the counties listed there. It's 7 counties that represent about half of the population. The next county to implement is Los Angeles. Certainly, as you imagine, with Los Angeles in there, that will be, sorry, not half the counties. Those counties represent over half of the California state population, I should say. So Los Angeles will implement by next month. And then by December of next year, all remaining counties will be required to implement. There is some leeway for counties that are unable to implement in time, but it's essentially an emergency, something like a large fire or something that precludes the ability of the behavioral health agency or other members of the team to actually do care. But barring something of that nature, all counties will be implemented by next year. Just an overview of what we're at the state responsible for. And when I say we, I suppose I mean California Health and Human Services Agency, as well as the Department of Healthcare Services, the Judicial Council. We are the sort of 3 main bodies organizing work under the CARE Act. So we're responsible for coordinating both across the state and also counties, helping coordinate internal county work. We're also facilitating funding both for implementation of the program by the local jurisdictions, as well as programs such as housing, like I mentioned earlier, and other kinds of services. We are also developing training and technical assistance for all of the parties involved, because of course this is complicated and there's a lot of questions. And also, for example, with the voluntary supporters, they may not have the maybe legal or medical experience. And so we've developed a series of trainings, and we're continuing to develop trainings to help them understand, how the CARE Act works and how to best participate. Of course, judicial processes had to be set up for this, including the proper forms and the various teams of members in the respective courts who would process CARE Act petitions. And then we're also responsible for overall coordination of data collection and analysis. The data collection is meant to really measure some of the key program goals. And of course, we don't have any of this yet. This will be an annual process, but essentially looking for things like improvement in housing status, reductions in emergency department visits, reduction in law enforcement engagements, incarceration, reduction in substance use, and reductions in conservatorship. And also we'll be looking at all of these data through sort of an equity lens, looking at primarily racial demographics, but other demographics as well, to identify if and where any inequities or disparities are happening there, so we can, of course, work to address those. A couple of things I'm just going to go over, kind of not necessarily FAQs, but sort of common things that people want to know more about. So first is respondent participation and sort of how that's incentivized. If the respondent doesn't participate in any of the CARE Act proceedings, so let's say someone petitions them and they don't engage, the CARE Act is terminated, the CARE program is terminated. There is no immediate consequence of that, though. There's 2 sort of separate streams that could happen. One, the court may, and it certainly doesn't have to, and this is at the discretion of the court, but they can use already existing law, so outside of the CARE Act, mostly relating to conservatorship, can use laws to ensure safety of the respondent and the public. So if this individual is brought to someone's attention and they may not qualify for the CARE Act, but they may qualify for other programs that are needed, again, to ensure the safety of themselves or the public, that can happen. And then also, if a conservatorship hearing were to occur within 6 months of the CARE Act being terminated for failure to participate, then a failure to complete the care plan is considered. And what I mean by is considered is essentially that whatever services were offered in the care plan will be determined to be insufficient in a conservatorship hearing. So such that if, in a conservatorship hearing, they also try to find other services that could be appropriate instead of conservatorship, but it would be determined that whatever was offered in the care plan wasn't enough. So it may require adding more services or conservatorship potentially, et cetera. So those are the main sort of consequences. And another big kind of area of the CARE Act is that actually this also holds counties, well, I shouldn't say counties, local partners, which often include, of course, county partners, but can include other partners as well. It requires that they are participating in care, which essentially means that they're providing the services agreed to and that they're working with the court and the individual to address any challenges. The court can decide to fine the county or the other local entity if they're not complying with the services that they're required to provide in the CARE Act. But those fines would go back to the local jurisdiction to support programs for essentially a similar population. It's a little broader technically, the population that the funds have to support, but it's very much a similar population as far as individuals who are on schizophrenia spectrum or have psychotic disorders and who are at or may be at risk of experiencing homelessness or involvement with the criminal justice system, conservatorship, etc. On the note of conservatorship, there are some key differences. First, the CARE Act does not include custodial, meaning, the CARE Act doesn't include any restraints on individuals, and it also doesn't include long-term involuntary medication. So again, the court can order medications for individuals, but can't actually force the individual to take the medicine in care. Also in care, a range of individuals can file for involvement in the care process. Of course, families will be a big one of those, but also clinicians and first responders with multiple engagements. There's also a supporter in care where it's not necessarily in the conservatorship hearings, or there isn't in the conservatorship hearings, a court required role, or a court allowed role, I should say, to have an individual, if the respondent desires, have to support them with decision making, including what's called a psychiatric advance directive, which is essentially once an individual is stabilized, they can acknowledge that in the future they may destabilize, and at that time, the psychiatric advance directive would list what they would like to have done. So it's sort of when they're in a stabilized context, they can essentially request what will happen to them if they were to destabilize. And then, of course, the conservatorship hearing does have a lot of court review of the process, and that is a little bit different from conservatorship. So we're really trying to ensure that these different entities are collaborating here. Next steps. So like I said, about, 7 and soon to be 8 counties have implemented CARE, which again represents over half of California's population, but the remaining counties will implement by next year. In the meantime, from the state's perspective, what we're doing is we're monitoring implementation. So we have regular check-ins with each of the counties that have already, established the CARE Act in their counties. And we're continuing coordination both with the counties that have implemented, as well as now working with the counties that will be implementing by next year. We're continuing to develop and give training and technical assistance to all members of the CARE Act, and we take recommendations, or I should say requests, for the types of training and technical assistance that would be most useful. And then, like I mentioned, data collection and analysis. So as this, as we get the data, we will be doing the analysis, both an annual analysis, as well as after 3 years of implementation, we will do a larger sort of independent evaluation, which would include more interviews with CARE participants and other parties that are engaged to sort of get a sense of what's been the impact of the CARE Act, and also making sure that there's no disparate impacts across race or other demographics. So that's the end of this presentation here. Of course, I'm happy to take any questions, and then also a list here of some of the resources that might be helpful. I know, like I mentioned, a lot of you won't be directly petitioning individuals or engaged in the CARE Act, but of course you will engage both with individuals who could be petitioned and also with people who could petition them or provide services. So we want to make sure you have as much information as you might need. key on here is definitely, I would say, the county specific website directory. So if you're in a specific jurisdiction and want to know who to reach out to in terms of the CARE Act, this website would have all of the information, but some other things on there as well. So hopefully I didn't lose everyone. And if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer.
No, thank you so much. This, yeah, I think that's very eye-opening. It just shows how complex and yeah, intricate this whole CARE court is. Would you be willing to share those slides with me just to keep them as a resource?
Yeah, of course.
Thank you. And then I guess the biggest thing, so our encampment coordinators interface with city and county representatives as well as social service providers. In terms of like the key takeaway with CARE Court, I know that our encampment coordinators can't petition. How should they go about, and then it gets into, you know, how many visits they've made, how many attempts that they've made, excuse me. How should they go about, would they reach out to the individual listed, you know, in that county specific CARE Court or a local social service provider? I guess who would they hunt down to kind of facilitate that?
Yeah, so I would say in general, the representatives listed in the county site would be certainly appropriate, though if you have, I'm not exactly sure how the encampment manager's, you know, role works, but if there were direct relationships you already had with members from that team, that's certainly appropriate too.
Okay.
But if that's not something, again, I don't know how exactly it works, but if you don't have that, then the county websites would be great resources.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, they're working hand in hand with probably the folks who could petition. So I guess that's a takeaway, is just to reach out to those folks, and they know some of these individuals already who can identify, take advantage of this. So that's really the biggest thing, but I would love those resources to kind of share with everyone. And if anyone has any questions or comments for Matthias, please pick his brain while he's here. So it can't be the first option, obviously. It has to be, yes, limited.
Yeah, both in terms of like the actual eligibility. I mean, you need to show basically that it's the least restrictive alternative, and if you haven't tried anything else, you couldn't say that. But also just from a service perspective, I mean, we don't want to involve people in a court process. It's not a criminal court, but we still don't want to involve people in a court process if not needed. So both on a legal and just a practical level, we definitely want this to be, you know, an option down the line, way before conservatorship, incarceration, et cetera. But, you know, if there's been no attempts at engagement, et cetera, from the social service providers or whoever else may be out there, then it isn't going to be the most appropriate.
Got it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. What do you got, Warren?
Well, Matthias, thank you for that. Boy, that was a lot of information thrown at us. I think I speak for everyone when I say none of us that started working for Caltrans thought that we would have these words in our vocabulary. But it's really helpful to know that the program's out there. The one thing you mentioned that really caught my attention was the behavioral health bridge housing. And I'm curious about, you know, is that a grant program? Who administers that? And then also, you know, once those funds are in place, who is the entity that's kind of arranging for the housing at the local level?
Yeah, great question. So behavioral health bridge housing is funding for local behavioral health jurisdictions to construct service enhanced bridge housing. So it's a very new world. I mean, at Caltrans, I'm assuming, like you said, you didn't imagine you'd be talking about these things. Behavioral health jurisdictions didn't expect that they would be building housing. So it's a new world for many people here. But yes, so these are housing units that may have direct services very closely linked, either on site or regular coordination on site. And they're not meant to be permanent supported housing for a long time, like permanent housing, but more to bridge a gap into a different, more appropriate, or I shouldn't say more appropriate, but help stabilize them, and then a different housing type would be more appropriate. So it's 1.5 billion, and there was just the last round of funding was about 900 million. So a lot of it has gone out, but nothing has been. I mean, this is all very new. I think they just announced the awards maybe in the last 2 months or so. So it's very new, but a lot of sort of psychiatric facilities. I mean, what you might consider psychiatric beds are kind of definitely within that range, as well as a bridge into sort of like enhanced care and short-term housing.
So HHS coordinates the grant program, and then it sounds like the eligible applicants would be like cities, counties, and COCs, kind of similar to the Encampment Resolution Fund program.
Correct. I will just say that, sorry, I didn't clarify. I know you asked that and I forgot. The funding is allocated, managed by the Department of Healthcare Services, who is an agency within, who is in the department within California Health and Human Services. And they manage a lot of these kinds of programs. So that's why they're doing it. Okay. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you. And I did drop the link to the HHS Care Act website into the chat. And it sounds like Ali's going to be circulating your presentation, which will be great for everybody to have. So are there other questions for Matthias? I think we overwhelmed everybody, or it was so informative, we've answered everybody's questions.
Hopefully the latter. And of course, you have my email. Feel free to circulate that as well. Happy to field questions as this rolls out. It's complicated. There's lots of questions, and I'm sure people in the field somewhere, somehow, it will come up. There's a lot of noise about this. Noise may be the wrong word, but this comes up a lot in these spaces right now. It's new, brand new. I mean, the first counties just implemented just over a month ago. So it's very new. There's very little information about what actually will come of it. And there's also a lot of misinformation, I would say, about what the program is and what it can do, certainly related to homelessness. Like I said, it's not specifically for homeless people, though, of course, natural fit, many of the people who are natural fit may be homeless, but it's certainly not, there's nothing that states homelessness explicitly in the core process there, or in the core eligibility criteria.
No, this was super informative and helpful. And I like that we did this early on, because I think we need to get ahead of this, because it's coming down the pike, and will be statewide soon enough. So I'm sure we'll have questions. I'll send out all these resources, but super helpful and appreciative. Thank you for joining us. Really, that was great. I learned a lot. I knew it was complicated. I didn't know it was that complicated.
I was trying. I mean, most of my work was trying to pare down the level of information to something that, of course, you all, I mean, because you won't actually be implementing a lot, so I didn't want to overwhelm you, but because there's a lot of misinformation, and you will be engaging with people on all sides of this, or all spheres of this, wanted to make sure that there was enough information in there as well.
Yeah, no, that was great. Thank you. Yeah.
Great. Of course. Like I said, you have my email, so feel free to reach out. And happy to keep working with y'all.
Yeah. Thank you so much, Matthias.
Yep. Have a great day, all. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye. Woo.
Okay, so Ali, turn it over to you, since I think Ron has another appointment today.
Oh, that's right. Is Ron gone? Ron's gone. Were there any? Ron was going to discuss contract and training updates. I don't think he had much to talk about, but I just want to give time if anyone had questions or anything to relay to Ron, and in particular pertaining to this kind of stuff. We can relay it. Just holler. I'll give you a second before. Let's see. Okay. Hearing none. Let's roll right into our roundtable. That was a lot of information, y'all. That was a lot. That is complicated. The forced medication and all. Oh my God, that was a lot. I'm glad I learned a lot. Okay, moving on. So yes, roundtable. Hope everyone is doing well, that you're still with us. Let's just kind of go around. And I'll start with District 1. Any highlights, any concerns, anything coming up in your district that, everyone can benefit from? District 1, anybody here from?
So,
Oh,
but all District 1, they are both in they're leading a training today and are not able to be here.
okay. So we got nothing. You got nothing, Warren.
I
Okay.
got nothing.
District 2, how about you? Ooh, they're on the naughty list. What about District? What about District 3? I see a few people.
Hey, good morning. I have nothing right now.
Okay. D4. Anyone from D4? Negatory. What about D5?
Hey, it's Carolyn. We got nothing.
Well, I guess nothing is good. Okay, thanks, Carolyn. D6? D6. Crickets. D7?
Nothing for D6. Sorry.
Oh, D6. Okay. D7?
Hi, D7, just one quick announcement. For our district, we started the transition to a program called Smart Sheets last week for better data management. It's
Mhm.
like Excel, but just more features. We hope it's going to be greater improved, especially for reporting. So
Yeah. I think I read that. I know our data retention guy is working on a rollout of our survey 123, but he had mentioned that Smart Sheets program and sent us some information. That looks, yeah, definitely helpful.
Yeah.
Thank you for that, Aaron. D8? George. District 9?
This is Matthew from District
Oh,
8.
hi.
Hey, no, everything's going good. Nothing to report over here. Just working a lot. That's it. Cleaning them up.
Yeah, I bet. Awesome. Thank you. District 9? Can't hear. Maybe that's Warren. D10.
Good morning, Allie. This is Bob. We're working on trying to mitigate repopulation. It's it's a problem where folks are going back to where they were. We've identified 9 spots. We're engaging our functional units internally and our external partners to kind of come up with a site plan for each of these different locations so that when funding becomes available, we can have these projects kind of ready to go, so to speak, and either with with a new project or piggyback onto an existing project. So
Mhm.
we're working on that, and hopefully we'll have something to announce or have some more details on that in our next meeting.
Got it. So D10, you're saying you've identified 9 high priority, high return encampment sites that you're kind of focused on. And I think Warren was kind of clued me in onto that. You're identifying those with the hopes of, once funding's available, installing mitigation measures.
That's correct. Yeah, and we have
Okay.
many more than 9, but we're starting with the 9 probably highest repopulation areas or priority areas.
Sure. Understood. I know Warren's part of that working group too. Did you want to add anything, Warren?
Yeah, just a real quick thought on that. So, Bob, thanks for the update. One thing that occurs to me, and this is helpful for you since you've identified these sites, but other districts may be thinking similarly as well. These are locations that would be really great to engage our local partners in a discussion about the Encampment Resolution Fund program. To include in the sites that they would be trying to build support around as well. So the fact that you have those sites identified could really help engage your local partners in that ERF process. So really appreciate the information, Bob.
No, and thanks for your help on this, Warren. It's been great working with you. Thank you.
So is that the goal? Are you going to follow up with local partners to kind of push them towards those ERF grants, or applying at least?
Oh, I think that's a great opportunity that Warren brings up, and certainly, yeah, it could be part of the discussion now, or a framework going into these site plans.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Great update. All right, let's go to D11.
Hey, I had a question for D10, Saul
Yeah.
Perez, the camp specialist. I don't know if you guys touched on it. I joined kind of late, but I know we have our internal meetings here in D10, and the question always gets asked about the Maze Eat program, the patrol program. I know it was a pilot program before, but is there any update on that?
I knew that was coming. I was just waiting.
I'm sorry.
No, it is. Warren, I think, why don't you, this is an ongoing discussion.
Yeah, and the reason, because I just took over as of August myself, but like I know smaller areas like Merced, Modesto, Tracy, when the program was in place, the guy prior to me, the specialist, he told me he maybe visited those areas once because of the program. Instead of taking the contractor that's so expensive all the way down there, when we could prevent it with this other program with Maze Deep and the local maintenance crews, I kind of see, where they're coming from. So just wanted to get an update for them for our next meeting.
Yeah, we know it's successful. Don't get me wrong. We are on the same page as everyone in the field. Warren, why don't you take it? Or where we are now. I don't really know if we have an update, unfortunately, but it's an ongoing discussion.
We do. So this is a hot topic, and I actually had a lengthy conversation with Scott from D7 recently about this as well, and he provided some really helpful information about a local program that's where their metro actually contracts with CHP to do similar things. So we're using that information to help us kind of inform our discussion with CHP. We did have a meeting with them last week, and it's been tough. We haven't gotten the kind of movement or support that we really hoped from CHP. I'm just going to speak candidly, and I would appreciate it if everybody would kind of keep that within the circle of trust here. We took a little bit of a different tact in our last meeting with CHP, and this is real insider baseball. So no immediate results expected, but we're working on a few different, we've got a few different ways that we're approaching this. In our conversation with CHP, we meet with their leadership every month. This has been an ongoing topic of conversation. Like I say, we haven't had the kind of progress that we hoped. And so just in the last meeting, Elisa really came up with the idea of creating a working group with Caltrans and CHP to start, problem solving. How are we going to get enhanced patrols? I don't care what we call it, whether it's Maze or a special patrol or a contract, or however we're going to slice it. We all know we need more enforcement out there. So we now have this whatever we called it, our focus group that is going to work on developing some solutions. So that's just one way we're trying to solve the problem. The other conversation about a budget change proposal that would support, that enhanced Maze program is still in discussion and in development. You heard earlier from Angela Madison from Ledge Affairs that we're in the process right now of proposal development. And so that is obviously a part of a lot of the different discussions in the proposal development world. So nothing to report right now, but we know it's a hot topic. We have a number of ways that we're trying to work on it. Hey, it's even possible that we create a Caltrans special enforcement division that would be, our own law enforcement agency. So, you know, all options are on the table right now. In time, CHP still has the responsibility for providing enforcement and helping to patrol the state right away. So even though we don't have the contract, it's still their job. And so, you know, they have pledged that they are there to do their job, regardless of whether that MAZE program is in place or not. So if you're not getting cooperation from your local CHP area, then we need to talk about that. You know, we need to elevate that within the district and maybe have that be a district director conversation with their counterpart with CHP at the local level. Or we can even elevate that in our conversations at the statewide level if it turns out that we can't, you know, but I always like to solve these problems as close to the ground as possible. And Carolyn, I can see you have your hand up. So what's happening?
Okay, I can give you an example. So in one of our counties, I won't speak on that unless you want me to. We've got an issue where we will go and remove some encampments, and within the day they will reestablish, and we will get notified by CHP through TMC. So they are basically just stating, hey, they're reestablishing Caltrans, come back and post and remove again, instead of going in and just, you know, doing the damn thing and escorting them off the highway. So that's happening in one county specifically. We're having issues. And it's every single encampment that we remove, we get the notification through the TMC, and it's almost like a slap in the face. We've done so much, we've put so much money in with these mitigation efforts, with the permanent fencing, the grading, the concrete. I mean, it's like, when is it gonna click? You know, so that's one of the issues that we're having. And then adversely, down in Santa Barbara, which is our golden child, you know, they've got a really great relationship with CHP. They're on it, you know, they'll be there patrolling the day of, after the removal, the day after, and they, you know, when they see people setting up tents, they tell them to leave. So it's like total opposites in these two counties. But that's really one thing that, you know, and I've sent that information up to my deputy district director, because I know that she has conversations with CHP quarterly about, you know, the relationship. And so I'm hopeful that she can bring some insight to that meeting. But, you know, we've had conversations in the past up until now, and it's frustrating.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you guys for all the info. Luckily here in District 10, we have great cooperation with the MAZE. I think I know everything goes back to dollars and cents. So, you know, like what I'm getting from the superintendents, from local superintendents, is can they request MAZE for a couple hours? You know, if there's like sites that, you know, that aren't as big as the ones that require the contractor, so they could go get them with their crews. You know, can they use the MAZE for the encampment? Can they request to go help them out? You know, is that frowned upon, or is that like a no-go?
If we're picking up debris after an enforcement action, you know, if it is like an encampment removal, then that would be something you could use MAZE for. But otherwise, we do not have MAZE for any kind of enhanced patrol. So again, if it's related to an encampment removal, yes. If it's just general patrol, no. Real quick, so thanks for that. I think having your district director, your deputy directly engaging with CHP sounds like a really smart idea. You know, you've seen in your district that you've got one area that's doing a really good job with enforcement and another area that maybe needs some help. I'd say communicate with us once that, you know, discussions happened with your deputy. And if we're not seeing an improvement, then we can certainly elevate that on our side. Also, I can see that Elisa has joined us, and she shared information about the working group that we have going with CHP. So Elisa, you know, don't know if you have anything else that you'd like to add to the discussion at this point.
Hi, everyone. Sorry, I'm very, very late. Life came up. But with regard to the CHP, we had a standing meeting with CHP headquarters for over a year now. And some of these issues that you bring up are consistent, right? They haven't changed. And so what we ask them is, can we have a side working group where we bring, stakeholders in and we hash out, some solutions, because we're not getting anywhere kind of just meeting and chatting about it, right? We're getting the same answers. And we understand that they have challenges, and they understand their challenges and acknowledged some of these challenges, not just with encampments, but just in general with Mazeep, where officers are either not showing up or leaving early. And so they're eager to work with us. We haven't had our first working group meeting, and we're kind of thinking of who the stakeholders will be. And so maybe we bring in some of our encampment coordinators for districts who are really having some challenges and have them at least participate in some of these meetings and these working groups to come up with solutions. So we're starting this. It hasn't started yet, and we'll keep you posted because we may be tapping from some of you for some input.
So let me put an example. Like, if a certain area, like let's say down in Modesto, they have 5-6 locations, small tents that they kind of know they're not too big, and they can handle with them their crews. Can they request Mazeep themselves to go assist them instead of requiring the contractor to go?
Are you talking about CHP or Caltrans?
Can the local supervisors request Mazeep to assist them with their crews to go down there?
If you are, so again, our Mazeep contract right now really specifies what we can and cannot do with that contract, especially in relation to encampments. So if there's, a planned encampment removal or a posting, you can use the Mazeep contract. If we're talking about ad hoc, like you just happen to be out there and you want to move people along, you can just call CHP, my understanding is, and just ask them to have these people move along if they're not established, right? It's really a on the boots on the ground kind of call. If you see people who are starting to establish an encampment, CHP can remove them without the whole process. They can say, you guys can't, you can't be here. That was kind of what the patrol program was about. But you can't just call Mazeep to come and remove them without going through the whole process.
Okay, sounds good. That clarifies it for me a little bit. Thank you. Sorry.
Well, I think Carolyn in District 5 brings up that it's different. It's all dependent on, like our districts operate sort of autonomously. It's every Caltrans regional office operates a little differently, and some have great relationships and some don't. So I think that working group would really be a place to kind of share this. So hopefully we can get that addressed in that specific county and these specific counties where we are having issues. So.
Well, and just to you all know too, we did, talk about, there's a reluctance, obviously, to, point out specific regions for CHP. We want to keep at least a decent working relationship with them. But, they were just really eager to know even a region, even an area, not specific officers or anything like that, to really maybe work in a more positive manner, not in a way that they're disciplining somebody, but just to say maybe that group of law enforcement doesn't have the capacity, and maybe they need to move people around to help them have that kind of capacity. That's what we mean. We need to look at why it's not happening, why we're not getting what we need to get as far as enforcement's concerned, and then what can be done. What are the possible solutions? And that's what that working group is about. I mean, I think at this point, we're all going to have to get down to brass tacks and look at real life solutions. And I think, often we've been trying to be very good partners and talk high level, but that's kind of the impetus of the working group. We actually need to get down to specifics and figure out solutions. Did that cover that pretty well?
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Welcome. So we're just getting into roundtable. We're just kind of wrapping it up. So D11, is Tony or anyone from D11 here?
Hi, yeah, this is Casey Drown.
Hi.
I just wanted to congratulate Tony as he's taken on the encampment manager position. So good, big props to him.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm a little under the weather, but I got a few things. So the first one is I had a couple superintendents reach out to me about if we're any closer to possibly having, and I don't know if Saul was trying to touch on this, was CT staff. I know about a year ago when we had, or this past year in April, we kind of touched on it a little bit, having CT staff, being able to go in and if we're any closer to having CT staff able to remove smaller encampments, locations that's just litter, no hazmat tents, stuff of that, like just smaller tents. I know that we kind of touched on it in April. Just want to see if we're any closer to that.
I can kind of jump in. I think, Ron has definitely been working on that. I think there are some areas where we have agreed can be done, but there's some hard boundaries. So let me have Ron circle back with you on that and, kind of put something together about where he's at. As you know, Ron has been out and so he just got back this week. So he's been trying to catch up, but let's circle back with him because that's definitely something that we've been working diligently to move forward with.
Okay. And then number two is, so we have one of our CHP offices isn't going to be able to supply any Maize or Cozeeps for about a week. And I wanted to see if HQ would be able to allow us to take inventory in that part of D11. I know it's kind of early on, but I know the point in time count is about a month and a half away. Sometime in January, I believe, was when we did it last time. So I don't know if those two crews that are going to be affected could possibly do theirs early so that they have something to do during that time. We'll still do outreach, and we have our dedicated outreach partner in that particular area that's going to be affected by the lack of officers, but I wanted to see if that might be a possibility.
I don't see a problem with it. Warren, do you have any thoughts on that? I think that works.
Yeah, our annual count is, we generally try to do it within a certain time frame, but it's not as, we don't have the same kind of legal requirements that our social services partners have when they do the point in time count. So I think if you guys have an operational imperative where there's, you don't have CHP and it makes sense, I don't see why not. I'm totally supportive of it.
And then so that would count for the one that I think last year Ron sent. I don't remember if it was January or February, but crews wouldn't have to do it like when the other crews do. Would that be okay? Okay, fantastic.
Yeah, let's check with. Why don't I do this again? I'll check back with Ron, but I don't see a problem with it. That for us, it's not a hard number. We're trying to get an idea, right? And David said February through April, but for us, we're just trying to get a round number, a rough number, so we know what we're dealing with. So I have no problem with that.
Okie dokie. And then the last thing I have is we have some new faces in the encampments with new lead workers. We got some really good up and coming talent. Some fresh. No, they're supervisors that have been around, but they're new to encampment. So I was going to see if we could possibly maybe HQ could put together like a updated training on it, like an IMMS training for our district, so that we can kind of get everybody. Because a lot of times when we run some of the reports, we kind of look at how people are inputting their time, and I just think it'd be good especially for the newer folks, to get the training that they need so that we're collecting the information and costing it out properly. So I was going to see if that might be something that we might be able to do.
So of course they'd have to go through the mandated training that Ron performs, right? The encampment training.
Yeah.
With regard to, with regard to the IMMS training, let's find out. I know they're kind of, we need to find someone who can go ahead and administer that. And let me just check with them. That's Diane Heff's area in headquarters. So let me check with her and see what they can offer. I'll get back to you on that as an action item.
Okay, and then because we could have like just our IMMS coordinator or maybe Casey or myself do the training, and then we could give it here locally. So that way we, there's at least 3 bodies here. Our IMMS coordinator, Casey and myself, that administer the training. That way, if you guys are, I know you guys are super busy, and then that way maybe we could put it on for the guys here in the district or the folks here in the district. I'm sorry.
Yeah, I mean, if that works out, if you are able to facilitate that, that works too. I'm just saying if you need extra support in that realm, we can find somebody always. We're busy, but we're not, we'll always make time for you guys.
All right, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Okay.
And other than that, no, we're just moving along. We're still doing what we do down here. We did have a really positive meeting with the city of San Diego. We finally sat down with them and kind of ironed out all like the communication issues. So that went well about 2 weeks ago. So yeah, we're just moving along.
Awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, lots of success down there too. The permanently housing some folks that were sheltering on the state right away. That there's an article that's going to be coming out in the next maintenance newsletter about your efforts with CityNet, and then I'm also talking to the county, who you also partner with, just about those folks some of the folks that they worked with to remove some PEH from the right of way and found permanent housing for them. So really awesome stuff. So thank you guys down there. Okay.
And Tony, you get the award, Tony, for joining us when you're so clearly under the weather. So thanks for being here. Your voice.
Well, I don't feel that great either. But I digress. Thank you, Tony. And go take some Theraflu or something, or a hot toddy.
Thank
or a
you.
hot toddy.
I will.
Okay.
Thanks.
And let's wrap it up. D12. Anyone from D12 here?
Yeah, hello, Ali. Yeah, this is Humberto, D12. Hello, everyone. Just trying to address the CSR, homeless encampment CSRs as they come in. And just looking forward to attend the applicant conference that's about the encampment resolution funding. And we're working on reaching out to the cities, the counties, and the COCs. And also, I have a question in regards of the removal end date. I was just curious, how does the rest of the districts do it? How far out they go when they post? We've been doing it, maybe giving it about a week, 7 to 10 days. I don't know if it's too far out, or can we extend it more than that? What does the team think?
Hey, Humberto, I'm not quite sure.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
Yeah. Sorry, not quite sure. I totally understand your question. I think you were asking when you post, how long you've got before you actually do the encampment removal. Was that your question?
No, it's because the posting template has 2 dates, right? The starting removal date and then the ending date. So what's the window that usually, or we should put? For instance, we're
you
gonna
you gotta talk to your computer because you're cutting in and out.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, for instance, if the starting removal date's the 1st of the month, for instance, how far out, like the removal ending date, should it be, or can we allow to give these individuals?
Yeah. So what are
Gotcha.
other districts putting as their end date for the removal? How far out are they,
Right,
from
correct.
that start date? Yes. Anyone care to offer insight? What's working for them?
Well, I wish Ron was here. I think I just went through his training a couple of weeks back, and he talks a lot about the timing on this. And I don't want to misspeak because I don't have my notes in front of me. It does have to be pretty tight. I don't think it's essentially you have to get there on the same day that you say you're going to start. Otherwise, you have to repost. And then you can keep, as long as you're continuing to work in the same location, you can continue until you're done. But I don't know if there's a time limit, but I would think if you get outside of this work week and you get into a weekend where you're no longer working, that would be too long. So at least that's different. Oh, and Jonathan Carabella, you got your hand up. Maybe you can, maybe you know this off the top of your head.
Well,
Go
I
ahead,
just
Jonathan.
I just was going to say what we're doing and what's working for us. And what we typically do is we give them, if startup is on Monday, our cleanup date is on Friday. Things happen, but typically you're going to walk into a camp, you're going to know how long it's going to take. You're going to know if this is a week-long cleanup, a 2-week-long cleanup. But if it's a small camp, we do a week. That gives us an opportunity to allow for unexpected events that happen, or we run across something that just is going to take a little longer. Maybe the occupants are giving us a hard time, and so we, CHP is like, oh, we'll just come back the next day, give them a little bit more time to remove their stuff. But our removal start is, for instance, I'm looking at one. We started it cleanup on 10:30, and end date was 11:03. So that gave them Monday through Friday to get their stuff and get moving. Otherwise, we did it for them.
Okay, this is Yvonne, District 12. Thank you so much. We have been doing something a lot similar. So it seems that we're on the right direction. And I just want to thank you for sharing the CARE Act legislative information. And I understand that most districts are going to start, November, December. And that's going to be a big help with PEH into getting them into facilities and places that are really are going to help them along the way. It's going to be a great tool for our toolbox on the right of way. And then with that, we're looking forward to the rollout, this application conference, our applicant conference for the upcoming contracts. So we have put together a list of persons that we work with at this time doing outreach efforts, and we're going to engage with the cities. We do have the city of Santa Ana that's signed up, and the city of Garden Grove. So we're looking to do more cities and get them engaged, and that'll help us, a lot along the way into developing a more accurate and strenuous process. We can get it done a lot quicker. Our relocations are going pretty good. The larger encampments are shrinking. It's been a continuous basis, but we are able to get them down a lot more. We have just one area right now that's going, like 20 to 25, and that one is coming up next week. So with that, we're working with our locals, outreach services. We're trying to get people to go in and check in on these situations when we go in and clean up. As you mentioned before with the CHP, it is kind of hard. We get them when we have Mazeb and we go out and clean, but the duration after, I don't know how that's working out. I think if we had more support, people going in, particularly the day after, to help people not reestablish, that would help. And I thank you for putting together these focus groups. We hope to be a part of that. And that's all I have for now. Humberto or Larry, do you have anything that you need to add?
Well, just going back to what the point Humberto brought up about end dates, I think the week, like John is doing and Warren's mentioned, it kind of makes sense to keep it contained within a week so you're not having that weekend where you're not working. So I hope that helped, Humberto, answer your question. And thank you
For
for
sure
the
it
input.
did. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, Jonathan, for sharing that.
Oh, no, we didn't. Oh, go ahead, John. Oh, I just answered your text.
I was trying to do this and I hit the wrong one.
Oh, thumbs up. Okay. Got it.
Sorry.
Sorry, D12. Anything else? You guys done? Feel free. Any other issues?
This is Larry. Just kind of tagging on to some things Warren said. We have cities that want to go in. The city police departments want to go in, and the CHP, they just kind of get in the way. They get in the way because it's theirs. There's parts of the freeway that they drive down and they can't even see where the homeless are because they're behind big walls. And if the CHP would do some delegation, it would allow them to focus on what they're supposed to be doing, and it would allow the cities to go in and focus where they're having trouble. I think he did that, but I just wanted to, yeah.
Yeah, so thanks, Larry. We, in one of our earlier meetings with CHP, and I think I mentioned this on a previous call, we heard from leadership at the statewide level, something we hadn't heard before, which was, encouragement for your local area CHP commands to involve their local law enforcement partners in helping patrol these areas. They've been very clear that they're not going to delegate enforcement. So they don't want to have, Santa Ana Police Department, for instance, going in and issuing citations and removing people from the right of way. That's a CHP function. But they certainly have invited the local law enforcement to help us patrol, to help continue to do outreach to individuals that are experiencing homelessness that are in the state right away. We have a consent letter for service providers that we potentially could use to help get our local law enforcement partners kind of on board. But all of this should happen with, some communication and coordination with your local area CHP office. And I think if you're getting, pushback from them, that's an area where, we should elevate that again internally at the district first, to your deputy or to even your district director. And then we can always engage that at a statewide level if we feel like we're just not getting the kind of satisfaction. But I like the way you're thinking, and the direction from CHP at the statewide level was, yes, your areas should be working more closely with their local law enforcement partners. So I hope that's helpful, and I know Elisa's got her hands up as well.
Yeah, just adding to Warren to what you said is, often as well, our team, Warren, myself, Allie, Ron, the rest of us, you certainly sit in a meeting with your local law enforcement and CHP to help facilitate a plan of action. These are new concepts. Specifically, as you look at CHP, they're used to working a certain way, but we can, certainly facilitate a plan of action of how they work together and how we all work together to make, some impactful changes. And I think once CHP sees how it works, right, that we're not trying to take anything away from their jurisdiction, but rather add tools to help them do their job, I think it will help to turn the page. But these are going to be, really grassroots conversations that unfortunately each district's going to have with their local partners. And one other thing I just wanted to bring up while I'm talking, sorry, is inclement weather is coming, right? We've already seen it start. It's starting to get colder. Please keep that in mind. Really working maybe in advance with our local COCs to talk about what's the plan, as weather gets colder, it gets more dangerous for folks outside. Can we work in advance to kind of bridge people now so they know where to go if they need help? Can we help facilitate that before we're in these emergency situations? I know it's already snowing up in the Sierra a little bit. but rain, all the things we saw during those atmospheric river storms, I just want to keep those in mind to say we can be proactive with our partners and say, hey, look, before this gets bad, maybe we should start now and come up with a plan. So I just want to throw that out there. But yeah, definitely call us to the first topic. Feel free to call us and we'll help facilitate those conversations with CHP. And like I said, again, we'll certainly be tapping you all for various parts of this newly formed working group with CHP.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, Warren, or back to whoever.
Was there anything else from District 12 in terms of updates? Okay. Just real quick, before we throw it to you, Elisa, I think for the wrap up, because this is loosely our question and answer session. Maybe we'll do some more questions and answers before we finish. But just on the issue of inclement weather that you raised, I think there are some things that we're involved with. A discussion with the Priority Populations Task Force that Allie's working on. It got me thinking that we probably could also provide some additional guidance or tools for some conversations that could be happening at the local level to help you with some proactive planning. What I wanted to say though was, we occasionally will provide kind of statewide guidance about encampment removals, whether it's a heat event or a rain event. Most of the time, when we've got weather in California, we're such a big state, it's not always consistent from the Oregon border to, the Mexican border. So there's, usually we're kind of depending on all of you at the local level to be making decisions on a week by week basis about whether or not you should be doing encampment removals. If there's some reason not to for the safety of people who are out there, we expect you to be making those decisions. We'll continue to be issuing some, updates or guidance when there are those really big events. But again, we kind of depend on you to be making good decisions, and for the most part, you always know better what's happening on the ground than we do. So we appreciate all the work on that regard. So Elisa, we're kind of to the end of the agenda. We didn't throw it out for open discussions and questions. So maybe as part of your wrap up, we can kind of take whatever other remaining questions are out there.
Sounds like a plan. Okay. Humberto, you have a hand?
Yeah. Yes. Hello, Lisa. Also, I'm sorry. I meant
Hi.
to also ask you. I know there's holidays coming up. For instance, Thanksgiving is a short week, and our unit, we're questioning whether to proceed with the removals or maybe should we wait for the following. Well, what do you guys think? Any suggestions?
Yeah, and I mean, we can kind of pull the room, so to speak, but we generally pause for those holidays, just out of sensitivity, really. It's probably not the kindest thing if we can wait, to move people during the holidays. If we can possibly wait, then, generally we wait. Anybody else? I think, Warren, you were gonna say something?
All right. Thank you, Lisa.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm happy to hear from other folks. I know, so I agree with Elisa. We don't have hard and fast guidance on this. I think it is a really smart idea to avoid doing encampment removals the week of Thanksgiving. Look, you've got law enforcement, everybody's taking vacation during that period. So it's a bad week anyway. But it also is just a sensitive time. So, I think our informal guidance is pause the week of Thanksgiving, pause the week of Christmas, and probably even New Year's. But obviously, if you've got an emergency or if there's, a reason for urgency, then you need to go ahead and do what you have to do. I can see D10 is pausing, and so I think, this is a good enough question that we will send out a guidance update And again, we kind of depend on you to make decisions at the local level. And if there are questions, feel free to call us and we can kind of brainstorm and talk through any issues that are going on. Thank you.
Any other questions? Feel free. Unfortunately, I missed almost the entire meeting, so I don't know I have an idea of what all was discussed, but if there's any other questions for me or the team, please feel free.
This is Yvonne, District
Okay.
12. Hi, it's Yvonne,
Hi,
District
Yvonne.
12. Hi, I was wondering, are you going to send out more information on the CARE Act legislative? I know you pulled it up to share.
Yes, we will be sharing, what
I'll do that.
pull together. Yeah, thanks, Allie. Yeah, we want to make sure you have them to
Yeah.
work with.
Yeah, I'm
And
gonna
then
get Matthias's PowerPoint and kind of trim it down and just get you what you need to know. And then all the resources you'll need. So I'll put that together for everyone and send it out.
Great. Thank you so much.
Yep.
Any other questions? Going once? And give you some of your time back today, going twice. All right. If there are no objections, I'm going to wrap you all up. So again, sorry I missed the first half, but I did have some input as to what was going on in the meeting today prior to the meeting. So, oh, Allie, you had a hand up?
Oh no, I was just saying, yes, you did.
Oh, thank you.
Late. I always say late, but worth the wait.
Right? Oh, I love that. I do want to add, I'm so appreciative to our guests, coming in and talking to us. And I think as we hear more from you and kind of the information that you're looking for, we're constantly kind of, our finger on the pulse of what's changing. We try to really monitor trends and things that are not only happening in California, but across the country. We want to make sure that we bring you the latest information. And now we've been able to really tap into some of those who have expertise and bring them in to chat with you so that you can, glean as much as possible. But again, like Yvonne was saying, this potentially is a great tool in our effort to work in the area of homelessness, right? I just want to also say, we've been doing as a whole group tremendous work. I don't get to talk to everybody every day, and sometimes I talk to several people a lot in a week. But I hear about what we're all doing. The information is being shared, and it's stymieing. I talked to Ron yesterday and he says, we had a team meeting and he says, I can't believe all the work we're doing. I can't believe the strides we're making. It is incredible. So I say to all of you, thank you for your work. Thank you for your questions, because your questions produce answers, which produce solutions. And so I'm excited for the ETA. I'm just going to say now our team's been working really hard on it, again, trying to get the right people at the table so that you can share ideas, ask questions, and continue to make the difference that you're all making. I'm partial to the work that we're doing. I mean, I love our department and I love, Caltrans, and, I happen to work under maintenance, so I love maintenance. But when people ask and they say, and you guys probably hear this as well, they say, oh God, homelessness, terrible. That must be awful. And I say, not at all. People who want to find solutions to things, people who are fixers, people who, want to make the world better work in this realm. And so I think we have the best. So I'm just going to say that I'm so proud of everybody, and we have a lot more work to do. But we're getting more tools to help you do what you do now better. So without further ado, any comments from anyone? Anyone from my team have a couple last words? We good? All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see y'all soon, and continue the success. Oh, Jocelyn, was that a hand up? No. Okay, that was like a raise the roof hand. All right, thank you all. Bye-bye.
Thank you.
See ya.